Sachin is lovable, right? He's always been the boy next door. He's someone that mom saw and said that I want my daughter to marry someone like a Sachin, right? He's the quintessential good boy. That's Sachin's brand, non-controversial, right? You look at Virat, it's the opposite. He's aggressive. He's when he started off, he was almost like that Delhi, aggression that he had, and it worked for him, right? He was seen as macho. He was seen as aggressive, almost rude, and that brand worked for him.
Hi, welcome to Beyond the Field, a show where I take you off the sports field and into your favorite teams and events. I'm your host Nadeem Sheikh, and I will be talking to industry professionals like me and provide you guys a 360-degree view of the thriving sports industry. So today, I have with me Indranil Das Blah, a sports industry professional with over 22 years of experience. He was the founder of One Entertainment and Marketing Solutions. He was the vice president at Reliance Sports. He is the former CEO of Mumbai City FC, a team of which I'm a big fan. Welcome, Indranil, sir.
Thank you for having me.
So we'll start off with the podcast. And first question, I want you to give our viewers your educational and professional background.
Sure. I'm from Shillong, in the Northeast. Born and grew up there. When I was 16, shifted to Delhi for higher studies. Study in DPS Mathura Road. Then was in St. Stephen's, did my English literature. Passed out in 2002 from college and been working ever since.
Nice. And how did you develop interest in sports?
Always been interested in sport. I think growing up in Shillong, sport was an integral part of our lives, especially football. So played a lot. One of the reasons I decided to shift to Delhi was to see if I could play sport professionally. Obviously, wasn't good enough. So always interested in sport. And then I remember in 98 or 99, there was a movie called Jerry Maguire that came out.
Yeah.
For a lot of younger people, they may not be aware, but Tom Cruise was, played the role of a sports agent. And I remember seeing that I was still in college or just about to get into college. I said, that's what I want to be. And that's pretty much how it started, honestly. So after finishing college, at that point, there were very few sports agencies of its kind. So did a lot of research. There was barely any internet back then, right? So it was just reading up a lot, going to libraries, saw the I think in Delhi there were around 3 or 4 agencies, applied to all of them. One of the biggest agencies at that time, which was IMG, offered me an internship without pay, which I couldn't take because I was living away from home. And I said that after college, I'd want to earn my own money. And then I started, I was fortunate enough to work in a golf marketing company called TSM or Tiger Sports Marketing. And that's when the journey started in December 2002.
Great. And you've been in the industry for more than 22 years, but I want you to take a step back. How did Tiger Sports come to you, or did you apply, and what was the process? Like, I want you to put emphasis on how did you get your first opportunity in the sports industry?
22 makes me sound very old. Like I said, applied to whoever I could get my hands on. And I was very lucky because I used to stay in this neighborhood called Saket in Delhi. And I remember walking back home once and I saw this board saying Tiger Sports Marketing. I was wondering what it was. So then I spoke to the watchman who said, kuch golf ka kaam karte hai or something like that. So I dropped off my resume there and I was lucky enough to be called by someone at TSN. Did the interview and I had great theoretical knowledge of sport. I was a nerd. I was obsessed with sports. So at any point of time, if you'd ask me about, who holds the current 100 meters record, for example, right, or how many runs has Sachin scored, I'd know all of it. So I think that sort of impressed them in terms of I knew my sport beyond just cricket. And I was lucky enough to get a job. That's pretty much how it started. When I was hired, I don't think there was a role for me. I was just hired as this bright young kid, fresh out of college. So I was hired in the marketing department. At that point of time, I didn't know what marketing meant. So for the first month or so, at that time, every proposal that was given to a brand, right, saying that sponsor golf tournament, they used to take printouts and keep in a cupboard. So there was a huge cupboard with just files and files of proposals given to different companies, right? Saying that, okay, sponsor golf, whether it's amateur golf, corporate golf, professional golf. So I remember the first month or two just reading up on proposals, right? Saying that, okay, how do you approach, let's say, an Airtel or Hero or whoever it is? How do you sell? And that's all I did for 2 months. I didn't do anything else. I just read up and read up and read up. And that's pretty much how I started.
Great, great. And over the years, you worked across Globo Sports, and then Quan came about. I wanted to touch upon how did Quan came about to you, and what was it all about?
So after TSM, I was in TSM for a year and a half, and then Mahesh Bhupati got in touch with me. He obviously started the Globo Sport, and it was a great opportunity, right? You don't get to work with legends when you're 22, 23. So took on that opportunity, worked in the Delhi office, and the day after I joined, my immediate boss quit for personal reasons. So suddenly I was a one-man team in Delhi. But I think that was a huge opportunity because immediately I started talking to someone like Mahesh directly. And I was in Global Sport for 3 years, probably amongst the three most fulfilling years, because I did everything right. That's when I first got my hands dirty in terms of sales, marketing, event operations. In Global Sport, we managed ATP tournaments and WT tournaments, international quality tournaments, right? So it was a great experience. It was also my first experience with athlete management. So some of the clients, I remember the first client I think I signed was Akash Chopra. Then Sania Mirza came along in 2005. She had a breakthrough year. So that was Global Sport. Right? It was a great experience. And then in 2008, me along with three others decided to start one. And yeah, that's the journey from Global Sport to Kwan. Why Kwan? Because I think I always wanted to do something of my own along with the partners. So four of us were in Global Sport. We had a great time in Global Sport, but just felt that the opportunity was right to get into Bollywood and talent management. I think by then we had also realized that our core competence was in terms of talent management. And that's how Kwan started back in 2008, I believe.
Great. You being in the talent management industry, I wanted to touch upon what are the qualities you look at while acquiring talent,
While signing a
while
talent,
signing a talent. Yeah.
I think the basic bedrock is they need to be really good at what they do, right? So whether it's an actor or cricketer, you need to be brilliant at what you do, right? Beyond that, I think as long as they tick that box, everything else is in terms of branding and marketing, right? How you position a client, and there are no two clients who are the same. A Sachin Tendulkar is very different from a Virat Kohli, is very different from a MS Dhoni, right? Similarly, an Akshay Kumar is very different from a Amir Khan is very different from a Salman Khan. So I think there are different ways and different strategies of managing talent, but the core is they need to be very good at what their job is, right? As long as that ticks the box, rest everything else is down to people like us.
Great. And these are all experienced people. There must have been people who are younger than them that you must have signed. How do you nurture these people? How do you guide them in order to perform well in their own core competency as well as push them in the market?
See, we are not experts in their sport, right? So I will not give a cricketer any tips on how to play, right? Similarly, an actor on how to act. They are the experts. They spend their lives, right? Whether they are 20 old, whereas someone like a Yashasvi Jaiswal, who's 22 years old and setting the world on fire, I will be in no position to tell him how to play cricket, right? So I really believe that what happens on field is their responsibility, and they are the best at what they do. My job is to make sure that I give them enough opportunities off the field, right? When we go and sign a client or we speak to a lot of these youngsters, we tell them that my job is to make sure that you only concentrate on your on the field. Rest everything else is left to people like us, right? So you don't have to worry about your financial security. You don't have to worry about your brand. You don't need to worry about what kind of imaging you have. That's my job. Your job is to go out there and be the best at what you do.
Great. You must have negotiated contracts for your clients or sports athletes. What goes around in a negotiation? Can you give a background or an approach? How do you approach? What is the process like?
See, ultimately, I think when you're selling a talent to a brand, what are you doing? You're selling time, right? You're selling their time, and time is precious. So typically, just to break it down, let's say it's an endorsement. An endorsement is broken up into X number of days that a brand gets. Again, to just simplify it, let's say a brand wants to sign Shubman Gill, right? A brand will approach his manager and the manager will give a quote. Now, the quote depends on the number of days that the brand uses. Typically, a brand will say, okay, let's say if it's a 1 year deal, a brand will use 3 or 4 days. Those 3, 4 days come at a cost, right? Over and above that, today you have social media posts attached. So, brand will say, okay, we want 3 days during the course of the year, out of which 2 days we'll spend on shooting a TVC. One day we may do a dealer meet or some sort of event. And we want 6 posts during the course of a year, right? So that is the basic of a contract. The rest, everything else is around it, right? So whether it's image rights, territory, the kind of usage rights that one has, those are the nitty gritties of the contract. But the basic premise of a contract, a talent contract, is he's giving time in exchange for money.
Great, great insights. You spoke about social media and digital platform playing an integral role. How does that help in order to leverage personal branding from athlete's point of view?
It's huge. I think today your traditional media is dying, right? So 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, for example, news media was really important, right? News channels were really important. Today, how does an athlete get himself out there? It's through social media, right? It's imperative to have an Instagram account, right? But there are pros and cons to everything, right? So while we brands are insistent that an athlete posts when they're endorsing the brand, but there are also some of India's biggest stars today who don't have social media accounts. You look at a Ranbir Kapoor, for example, he's one of the country's biggest stars. He doesn't have an account, right? But there are always two ways to look at it. One will, you know, certain people say that social media is a great way to reach out to a target audience. But there are also brand managers who say that a celebrity needs to be scarce, right? He can't be consumed all the time by the public. There needs to be some sort of aura, some sort of mystery around them, right? So if you're not on social media, that's where you can build a story saying that the only way to consume a Ranbir Kapoor is when he does an appearance, right? Or when he comes in a movie, which is where people get really excited because otherwise they don't see him, right? So I think one of the key things in talent management is you need to be flexible and you need to adapt, right? No two celebrities, no two talent are the same, right? Their personalities are different, their performances are different, everything about them. They're human beings, right? At the end of it, and there's something that we speak to a lot of young kids who want to get into the talent management industry. We are not selling soap, right? We are not selling an FMCG product. There's no rate card, right? We are selling personalities. We are selling is the wrong word, but we are marketing human beings, right? Each one is different. So you need to be adaptive and you need to adapt to their personalities. So social media is really, really important, but I also think that when it comes to usage of social media for talent, you need to be authentic, right? If you're trying to be someone you're not, people will see through that. Uh, and then, like I said, there's no right or wrong. There are certain cricketers, for example, today, with the young cricketers, they will post incessantly, right? They will post about what they're wearing. They'll post about, let's say, fancy dinners or places that they're at. But they should also post about their actual cricket, right? Gymming sessions, for example, net sessions, because then people should know that, okay, he still cares about his cricket, right? So it's a balance. Social media, like for all of us, right? It's not just for talent. It's a balance of showing your life, but also knowing when to draw the line.
Nice. And sir, I want to understand how big is the team managing an athlete? There will be a team manager. There will be a manager, talent manager. There will be a social media guy. Can you touch upon that? What
So it depends on the how big the talent is. Obviously, if it's small talent, then you just have one manager, right? And that often that one manager will manage several talent, right? But if you're looking at the big ones, then a typical structure is you have someone called an agent who is the overall, he looks after the brand, right? So you'll have an agent who will give strategic advice saying that, okay, these are the kind of brands we should target. These are the kind of magazine stories we should do. This is what your brand should stand for. So the agent is on top. Then he will be assisted by a manager, right? A manager will be the day-to-day guy who will work, who will be in constant touch with the talent, coordinating shoots, coordinating social media posts, and basically it's a job where you're in touch with talent every day, right? The growth for a manager is to become an agent, right? That is the growth part. I think people confuse agents and managers, but typically a manager is someone who's day to day forming a relationship with the talent, and then once he knows enough about branding and strategy, he becomes an agent, right? So typically, a big talent will have an agent and a manager. Along with that, there are various models, but along with that, they will have a PR manager, they will have a social media manager, they will have their entourage, which includes, let's say, a spot boy or a security person. So typically, a big celebrity will have an entourage of at least 7 to 8 people, right, including a stylist and everything else. And the manager's role is to coordinate with everyone.
Everyone below the agent.
Yes.
Sir, how has the role of marketing in sports changed over the course of time? Can you touch upon that? Because you've been like more than 2 decades, so you will have a better understanding of how marketing was happening earlier and what has changed today.
I don't think anything's changed. I think if you go back to the early 20th century when there were celebrities who were just coming into movies in the US, and then you had the emergence of TV and Broadway, right? Marketing is critical. Like I said, no matter what one does on the field or in movies, you're building a brand, right? So there's a certain narrative, there's a certain story that you need to develop. So I don't think that's changed. Social media has changed significantly the way people consume celebrities, right? Like I said earlier, it was if you wanted to watch a celebrity, you would only watch him on the field or in movies. Today, with social media, they're accessible at the tip of your fingers, right? So that's a change. But in terms of the storytelling of building a brand, I think that's remained the same. Uh, you have to identify what a brand stands for, right? And I'll give you a few examples. When Sania Mirza started off, this was in 2004, 2005. She was 14 or 15, and she won her first WTA tournament in Hyderabad. She had won Junior Wimbledon, I think, at that point of time, and suddenly she was just becoming a craze, right? We identified that she's very, very different, not just from her performance, right? Performance is on the court, but off the court, what did Sania Mirza stand for, right? She stood for a woman breaking barriers, right? Or breaking the glass ceiling, right? Here was a woman from a traditional, a Muslim family, right? Which, and it was perhaps a taboo to play tennis, right? So she came from that background. She was a girl in, I don't remember the last time an Indian sports woman was such a big sensation, right? And she also spoke her mind, right? So if you remember the press conference that she did, a big talking point became the slogans that she'd wear on a t-shirt, right? I remember one of them was good girls don't make history or something like that, right? Again, there are two ways to go around it. One, you could say that, you need to calm down, you need to tone it down. Or the other one is, wear your heart on your sleeve, right? If you stand for someone who's bold, who's breaking barriers, who, is aggressive, then let's go with that brand image. And that's what we did with Sania Mirza, right? We didn't want to be safe. Here was a girl who was just path setter, a trend setter, a path breaker and a trend setter, and that's the role that we followed, right? You look at Sachin's journey, Sachin, and juxtapose it with someone like Virat Kohli, right? Very, very different brands. Sachin is lovable, right? He's always been the boy next door. He's someone that, mom saw and said that I want my daughter to marry someone like a Sachin, right? He's the quintessential good boy. That's Sachin's brand, non-controversial, right? You look at Virat, it's the opposite. He's aggressive. When he started off, he was almost like that Delhi, aggression that he had. And it worked for him, right? He was seen as macho. He was seen as, aggressive, almost rude. And that brand worked for him. Yes, it's mellowed after he got married and today he's seen as a family guy. But there's different brands have different journeys, right? And that's the other thing. No brand stays the same. Today, if you look at Sania Mirza, what she was when she was 14, 15, today her brand is very different, right? She's a mother, she's a successful businesswoman. So that journey's changed. You look at Virat Kohli's journey from this ultra talented, slightly uh, abrasive young man to today being one of the greatest ever. He's a dad, right? So his brand journey's also changed. So I think another very important lesson for talent managers is don't get stuck on your brand, right? We have to reevaluate. I'm not saying every year, but even every 6 months, you have to evaluate where the brand stands, right? Again, I'll give you an example. Let's say today there's a cricketer who started off really well, right? He's on top of his game, he's doing really well. So you're going out to brands selling him as the next big thing in Indian cricket. But what happens if he gets injured, right? Or he loses form and he loses place in the Indian team? How do you change that story, right? Look at what happened with Rishabh Pant, for example, doing so well. He was perhaps one of the five, six biggest stars of Indian cricket, and then he's had an injury where he's been out of action for more than a year and a half. Right? There's no doubt that Rishabh's going to come back, but his brand managers needed to change his brand story. Right? They couldn't lean on his cricket performance. Suddenly, it became about Rishabh, who's going to come back, right? He's gone through adversity. Similar with Yuvraj Singh, right? He was always touted as such a big talent. He did really well. He helped India win the 2011 World Cup. And then the cancer story sort of changed his brand, right? Suddenly he's seen as a survivor, as a fighter, someone who stands up for a certain cause, which is close to so many of us. So brand journeys change depending on the lives both off the field and on the field that talent have.
Great insights, so great examples. I was also into it, hearing it's like a learning lesson. I want you to touch upon what are the trends and opportunities that you see that brands who are looking to leverage in sports should look at.
See, it depends on the brand, right? I think today, if you are looking at a national audience and you have budgets, nothing works better than cricket, right? If you are looking at, let's say, North India and West India, right? You look at Bollywood. So there are different reasons why a brand will take a celebrity. But like I said, there has to be a connection between the brand and the celebrity, right? It can't be a force fit. A brand, a talent stands for certain things, right? Again, to give you an example, let's say Rohit Sharma, right? He's a leader, right? He's a family man. He's the most successful captain that the IPL has seen, right? So he stands for leadership, he stands for performance, and he stands for family. If there's a brand that's looking at those attributes, they should look at a Rohit Sharma. But there's a new startup brand, right, who's suddenly being funded by VC money, and they're looking at breaking clutter, right? And they're saying that, okay, we are a young, aggressive, brash brand, then that brand should look at a Rohit Sharma. They should look at someone like a Jaiswal, for example, right? So each brand and each talent stands for different things. The important idea is to connect the two via storytelling and a narrative. I think, and there needs to be an authentic connect, right? But at the same time, you also need to think out of the box. You look at what Craig did with Rahul Dravid, right? No one would have thought that Rahul Dravid in that avatar would be successful, but it's one ad that I remember over the last 3, 4 years, right? So it depends on what the brand stands for, but it also depends on the creative minds working on the brand. It's all about storytelling at the end of the day.
Great. Now we'll move on from talent management to leading a football team. I want you to touch upon how did the opportunity came about at Mumbai City FC.
Really fortunate, honestly. It's probably the best job that I've had, the one I enjoyed the most. Always been a football fan, more than cricket. So very close to my heart. And how it happened was Ranbir was a talent match by Kwan. And Kwan, while we did a bit of sport, we were primarily a Bollywood management agency. So he was managed by Kwan. And he had the Reliance and the Ambanis approached him, knowing that he was a big Barcelona fan and he was a football fan. I think that's important again, right? You don't get celebrities who have no idea about a game. But he loved Barcelona. In fact, we had arranged a trip to the Camp Nou for him. He met Messi. This was back in 2012 or 2013, which was a great experience for him. But yeah, coming back to the story, he was a big football fan, and the Barney's approached him saying, "Would you?" like to be a corner of a team, and he obviously jumped at that opportunity. Excuse me. And that's when he asked me, saying that, you've been in sports, sports, I've got this opportunity of owning a team. Would you want to run it? I tried to act cool, but obviously it's an opportunity of a lifetime, right? Working and running a football club. And that's how it came about. It was fortuitous because Ranbir was managed like one and he didn't know anyone else from sports. And he said, "Oh, you're interested in sports. Would you like to run the team?" And that's how it happened.
Nice. Huh? What a story.
I mean,
Everything connects. Huh?
everything connects and it's all about luck and right place, right time, right? I think no one knows. If anyone says that we know it all, they're lying. It's like if you look at my career, whether it's the break with TSM, that happened by luck, right? TSM was an office close to home in a city of, I don't know how many people Delhi had at that point, 15, 20 million. So that was luck. Global sport and the opportunity when my boss suddenly left, that was luck, right? Someone like a Ranbir getting the opportunity of owning a football team, and I happened to be there, right place, right time. So I think a lot of the good things that happen also on luck and not because you're the smartest, brightest, or any of that.
What are both your responsibilities as a CEO at Mumbai City?
I think it's overall running the club. If you look at the main pillars of a football club, there's a technical and non-technical side of it. Technical is obviously the football bits, right, which is coach, players, and everything else. And there's a non-technical bit, which is the marketing of the club and the operations, running the club, right, your travel, stay, and everything else. Uh, in my limited experience, I think the technical bit, the important bit is to choose the right coach and the right technical staff. So your assistant coaches, physios, and all that. But once that's done, you stay away from the technical side, right? I am no one to tell the coach that, oh, you should have played Pippin Singh instead of Vikram Pratap Singh, for example, right? And I think that's a mistake that a lot of not just CEOs but owners make because we all are so passionate about the sport. We think we know it all, but we are not the experts. So I think that's a conscious decision to stay away from the technical side of things, right? Obviously, you will have chats with your coach after every game. You will say what went right, what went wrong. But the technical side is left to the experts. I think I wouldn't say the more interesting, but the more important side for CEO is the non-technical bits, which is developing the brand and running the club, right? The operational bits of it. I think we were lucky because when the ISL started back in 2014, no one knew what was going on, right? None of us had run big football clubs. Suddenly, you had the opportunity of working with people like Diego Forlan, right? Nicolas Anelka, Guimaraes, who was a coach, Peter Reid, who were a coach. Well, they've been coaches of the national teams. They've played at the you know, biggest stages, right? They played World Cups. So I think while that was fascinating, we didn't know what to do, right? So I think it was a lot of learn on the job. And I think in the first couple of years, honestly, no one knew what they were doing. I don't know how closely you followed the ISL, but Calcutta won it, 80K at that
First
time won.
80K.
And they won because they had the know-how of Atletico de Madrid,
Yeah.
right? That made a huge difference and that sort of opened eyes. And we understood, okay, this is how you run the technical side of things. But I think the first 2 years were, while they were a haze, they were also a blast. And then things sort of uh, what's the word? I think things sort of settled, right? And then you knew, okay, what you're doing. Then experts start coming into the field. But yeah, I think the opportunity of doing something from scratch, like Mumbai City, didn't even have a logo, right? It was so right from ideating on what the club should stand for. We felt that the club should be of the people of Bombay. So when we were designing the logo or speaking to the agency for the logo, they came up with the concept of having the local train because that binds every part of Bombay. Now, when Manchester City CFG Group have brought into it, there's obviously it's been globalized into their template, right? But the addition that they made was they incorporated the CFG. So I think those are the little things, but the journey of running Mumbai City for I think 8 years was incredible. What it's been the opportunity of a lifetime.
And what is the best part about leading a team?
You're living, breathing football. I mean, if you're a football fan, it doesn't get better, right? So pre-season, you're with the team. You're having football conversations, trying to figure out what happens. Why did the coach select X, Y, Z? I remember one fascinating discussion I had with the coach post one of the seasons where we had a centre back team. There were two of them, one older guy and one younger guy, and both weren't probably first choices when the season started off. But the coach got them together, and I remember asking him that why these two, right? You had better players. And he said that two things. One is in terms of a partnership, you need to know each other. And these two off the field, they were almost like a father and son, right? That was the age difference between them. And the other thing he said was sometimes you pair your strongest link with the weakest link, right? A lot of people say the weakest link breaks the entire chain, not if you pair him with the strongest link, right? Which is the older guy in this place. So I think those lessons, right? Those are invaluable lessons which you won't learn in books, right? Which you won't learn sitting in an office. Those are lessons that football has taught me. I think just traveling to every game, wearing your heart on your sleeve. I think every time we won, Mumbai City didn't have the best starts, right? I think first two seasons were really, really tough. Third season we did really, really well. So it also teaches you when we did really well in season three, you remember the bad times, right? And that stopped you from getting too cocky. But just the fact that when you win, you're on top of the world, and when you lose, you feel as if the world's come crashing down. But yeah, I think, like I said, that journey was brilliant. It was a great journey, and yeah, you learn so much off the field. I really think that in sports, it's very, very it what it gives you is what most desk jobs won't give you. Desk jobs, you're on the desk, the vibrancy, the aggression, uh, everything that sports gives you. If you're lucky enough to have a break in sports, you should never leave.
And how did you approach maintaining relationship not only with the staff but also with the players and other stakeholders?
Again, it depends, right, on your personality types. There are certain, I would say, CEOs are very close to your players. There are certain people who keep a distance. Again, there's no right or wrong answer. My philosophy was always to be kind to the players and be approachable, right? I think that is the main one. You need to be approachable. So tomorrow, if a player is having a problem and he can't discuss with the coach, your door should always be open for the player to come to you and talk about their problems, right? So I think approachability would be key. And I've had some great friendships, right? There are players that who played for Mumbai City in 2013, 2014 that I'm still in touch with, right? And I think it's very, very important to have personal relationships with people that you work with, whether it's the staff or the players, because at the end of it, like I said, we are in the business of people, right? We cannot be mechanical, we cannot be detached. We are in an emotional business. Don't let emotions override your decisions, but you have to develop emotional connections with the people you work with.
And what were the key strategies and initiatives that were implemented during your tenure
At Mumbai City,
at Mumbai City?
I think it was a difficult one, right? Because football is unlike in the Northeast or Kerala or Goa, where it's a way of life. It's a part of the community. In Delhi, in Bombay, at least when the ISL started, wasn't right. Yes, in the early 1990s, it probably was in Mahindra United and a few other clubs. But Mumbai sort of lost its football connection, right? So it was a challenge. I'm sure it's still a challenge. And the biggest challenge we had in Mumbai City was we weren't. Funded by MNC or by the Tatas or JSWs, right? It was two individuals, such as Ranbir Kapoor and Bimal Parekh. So we need to be really, really careful with our money. We never had any marketing budgets, right? Whatever we did, we used or we utilized Ranbir Kapoor's name. So we realized that okay, we can't spend big on media, so let's look at interesting activities. One of the most successful ones was a Dahi Handi we did with Ranbir Kapoor and with Aditya Thackeray, right, next to the Andheri Sports Complex. Another big decision was to move from DY Patil to Andheri. While DY Patil is a great stadium, it was just so far away from the city, you felt disconnected, right? Andheri, while it's a lot smaller, it's still such an intimate stadium and it's in the heart of the city. So there's a lot more that you can do to connect with the community. So I think those are the little initiatives. If we had more money, I'm sure we could have done a lot more. But that's again the challenge in selling non-cricket sports, right? Today, if you look at cricket versus football, Obviously, everyone's interested in cricket, but cricket also comes at a cost, right? Uh, the way we sold Mumbai City was today you go to most schools and colleges, kids are wearing your Messi jerseys and Ronaldo jerseys, right? They are all playing football. Not so many kids in the metros play cricket as much as football, and that's a fact. So I think little things like that help. Yes, people say that, oh, but they're following the Premier League and La Liga, right? And not Indian football. And that's when you start pulling at the emotional strings, right? Saying that how will Indian football grow if you guys don't support it? So there are various ways of doing it. But yeah, I think running a football club and selling a football club has been a challenge because of the kind of sports market that we are. But where we were 10 years ago versus where we are now, it's been a significant journey.
And how did City Football Group come into picture? Just throw some light on that.
So I think they have great foresight, right? They know how to utilize sport, and they identify Mumbai and India as a significant market for them, right? If you're an international sports federation or you're a sports club, you have to look at India and China, right? Those are the world's biggest untapped markets, so as to say. So I think they've always had their eyes in India, and then when the ISL sort of came about, they monitored it. It's interesting because the actual deal was announced. I think the takeover was announced in 2018 or 2019. I don't remember, but they were in touch with us 3 years before that, right? Right from the head of football operations to the head of marketing. They came to India multiple times 2 years before the deal actually concluded, right? Just to understand us, to understand our philosophy, to understand what the club stood for, what are the pros, what are the cons, and they did their due diligence. I think that for me was a huge learning, right? They didn't come into it and said, okay, what valuation and let's do it. They did their detailed analysis. I think everyone realizes that, or everyone realized that they're not coming to India for football reasons, right? You're not going to get a Yao Ming moment from India anytime soon, right? You're not going to get an Indian to play in the Premier League or for Man City or any of the other sister clubs anytime soon, right? So they didn't come to India for the technical reasons. They came to India because of the market, and they realized that Bombay has actually great potential, right? There are enough people out there who want to come to football games. Plus, it's a big advertiser market, right? Like I said, what was fascinating is they did their analysis. The incredible bit was when their technical team came, right? And they spent time with the coaches and with the manager, with the football director, and they knew as much about our players as our technical staff did, right? How much someone ran, what are the attributes that player X has. And that for me was fascinating. Here, people who sitting, I don't know, 5,000 miles away in Manchester, who've been following our league and our players and can tell that, okay, player X has potential, player Y doesn't. Right. So that was fascinating and just shows the depth of knowledge that they have and the resources that they have, right? Whether it's the scouting mechanism, whether it's just the software that they have. Uh, so yeah, the entire process of the of CFG looking at Bombay, then the entire selling process, the entire cultural integration process of the two teams, CFG and Mumbai City, it was fascinating.
And we dived directly into City Football Group with Mumbai City. But so I wanted to give our viewers an insight as to what is City Football Group and what are the teams that they own.
So CFG, City Football Group, are the parent owners of Man City, which is the biggest club. Beyond that, they also have, I think, 6 or 7 other clubs, including Girona, who are currently leading the Liga. When they bought Girona, I think 4 or 5 years ago, they were a tier 2 team, right? They were in the Secunda B. So Girona's won. They have a team in Montevideo in Uruguay. They have an A-League team, the Melbourne City, I think it was. It is. They have a team in Tokyo and they have a team in the MLS, right? And different reasons. So if you look at the team in Uruguay, they have that tie because of the talent that comes out of Uruguay, right? In terms of just pure percentages and numbers, no country produces more elite footballers than Uruguay. So City's got a team there to tap into talent to play, in Manchester. Similarly, they've looked at countries or places like Mumbai and Melbourne because of the big advertiser market, right? Because of the economies of the two countries. They've probably looked at Japan for reasons both technical and non-technical. So those are the clubs that they have, and like I said, they know exactly what they're doing, right? Both on the football side and the non-football side. I think what's great in terms of working with them is they're not here for the money, right? They're not here to make $1 million out of Indian football. They're here because they believe in the market and they believe in the club and they believe in the sport. And I think that's how they've invested in all the 7, 8 clubs that they have across the world.
So Mumbai City has City Football Group as one of the owners. We have Ranbir Kapoor, and we also have Bimal Parekh sir. Uh, he's a lesser known of the three. I wanted to speak more about that because these are the people that own the team, and they've taken given us an opportunity to have a football team of a city. I want to talk. I want you to talk about them. What was your relation, and how about they bought the team?
So I'll speak more about Bimal's and less about Ranbir. Ranbir,
Yeah, that
everyone
is
knows
great. Yeah.
Ranbir, right? Ranbir already touched on the fact that Big Barcelona fan. He was actually very involved, right? So when the entire brand identity around the club was happening, Ranbir was very involved, right? He didn't say that do whatever you guys want. He asked questions, right? And he himself said that I want it to be, and it's something that he kept saying in a lot of interviews also, right? When he had the opportunity of owning the club, he said it's not my club, it's a club for the people of Bombay. So he was always very, very involved. Yes, he's a very, very busy guy. So which is why you don't see him, most games, but as and when he can, he's been very involved. And even when he travels, he watches the team, right? He follows the team. I remember, I think he was in somewhere in Europe when the season was on. This was a few years ago, and he was really upset because he couldn't figure out a way of watching a game, right? That's how invested he is in the club. But I think the more fascinating owner is Bimal. I don't know how many people know Bimal Parekh, but he is a very, very successful chartered accountant, and he's been in the industry for the longest time. He has clients like Ranbir, Amir Khan, and Katrina Kaif, and a whole lot of others, right? But he was never a football fan. I don't think he even knew the difference between football and cricket. He won't like me saying this, but when we started off, he had no idea, right? So it's been fascinating to watch his journey over the last 10 years because he's been, and I think I can confidently say this, no other ISL owner has been there at every home game of the club. He's always there, right? And people don't realize it, but he's a very, very busy guy. You try calling Bimal and he will not answer. He will probably call you back 2 days later, maybe at night, but he's that busy. But for him, Mumbai City has always been priority. Just the fact that he hasn't missed a single home game in 10 years is incredible, right? Today, and I had the opportunity of when the home games used to happen, and there he used to sit right next to him, right? So I've seen that journey from him asking, "ये क्या है? Offside kya hai? Why is he throwing that ball? Why did he kick it?" To today actually discussing technicalities, right? Saying that, oh, he should have crossed. Why is he trying to cut in? All that. So now he's become an expert. And to see this, well, elderly gentleman not knowing anything about football to becoming such an ardent fan, it's incredible. And that's a power sport, right? Which people don't realize. I think when I don't want to reveal his age, but let's say 50 plus or 60 plus, to see how he's becoming a football fan and a sports fan, his family's involved, right? His son, now I think, he was studying abroad, but when he was in Bombay, he used to come for every game. Again, this was when he started coming for games, he was 12 or 13. Today, he's a young man, right? But he's as passionate about the club as his dad. Similarly, if you look at Ranbir, Ali has come for a few of the matches, and I know that Ranbir discusses games with her, right? So the power that we have with our families, uh, that sports brings out, it's fascinating, honestly. But yeah, I mean, I hope Bimal gets more credit than what he does for making what Mumbai City is. If there's one person who encapsulates what the club stands for, it's Bimal Parekh and not anyone else. Yeah, so I have this first-hand experience. I hold a season pass of Mumbai City FC and I'm a very big fan. After every match is done in the home game, he comes to the ground, he meets the player individually, talks to them, and he's so much involved, not only with the players, but also with the fans. He comes to the fans, talk to the fans. And as you said, he is one of the most vested guys in football. And
He's a great gentleman.
Yeah, and like I said, it's not his. This is not his day job, right? It's not his full time job. It's it doesn't make him any money. In fact, he puts in his own money, right? In spite of that, it's just incredible what he does for the club, and he's very very involved, right? So he's still in being a CA. He's in charge of all the finances, right? So it's not like he's not involved. It's not like he just turns up at the games. He's very, very involved in the day-to-day running of the club. And again, that's I think intriguing because unlike Ranbir, who's been a lifelong football fan, this guy wasn't a football fan. He wasn't a sports fan, right? So yeah, fascinating.
So, sir, we spoke about Kwan, we spoke about Mumbai City FC. We'll speak about your recent experience with Reliance Sports. I think when we speak about Reliance, most of our audiences only knows that they have this IPL team. But there's a lot that Reliance Sports is involved in. I want you to touch upon that.
Sure. So Reliance Sports is largely four verticals. The most obvious one is obviously the MI ecosystem, Mumbai Indians ecosystem, where they own, I think, five teams now: WPL, Emirates, which they just won,
Yes.
MLS, MLC, which they won last
New York.
year. There's SAT20. So that's the entire cricket ecosystem under the MI brand. That's the most visible one and obvious one. Then they have the football ecosystem, which is the ISL or FSDL, which is the holding company. So the ISL is run on the FSDL and they have the commercial rights. There is RISE, which actually stands for Reliance Initiative for Sports and Entertainment, which is the agency business, typical agency business like an IMG or CA abroad, management of players, sponsorship, sales, TV production, licensing, merchandising, that entire gamut under RISE. And the fourth pillar, which I find the most fascinating, is the foundation pillar, which is called Reliance Foundation Youth Sports, right? Which is broken into various verticals. So there's talent identification and scholarship programs, there's Olympic sports, there's a grassroots football program, there's football league called the RFDL. But that all comes under the foundation. So those are the four verticals that Reliance Sports has.
And how did your transition happen from leading Mumbai City into joining Reliance? What was it like?
So I've known the higher ups at Reliance because of Mumbai City. So you know, I knew the team, I knew how they were. So when the opportunity came, after Kwan was also very Bollywood focused, and I wanted a bit of a break, and that's when Reliance started talking to me, saying that, listen, we know you, and you've been working with us through the ASL for longest time, and why don't you think you'll add value? So that was the process. Really, it was a fairly seamless transition because, like I said, I was already working with most guys, and I had an agency background through Kwan, and I had the football background through Mumbai City. So it was a pretty seamless fit. So I joined them during the height of the pandemic in June 2020.
Okay, and what are the projects that you worked on?
We worked across all four verticals, so was fortunate enough to be a part of everything that Reliance Sport did. But my particular focus was around the foundation, and I think we worked for a couple of really big projects. So the biggest one probably was the 141st IOC session, which happened at the NMACC in October last year. That was a huge project, huge not just for Reliance but for the country, right? It was the first time we were having an IOC event in India in 40 odd years, right? So it was a big thing just to win that bid. And the Congress itself was very, very successful. So that was significant. But I think just working, so one of the facets that I wasn't exposed to in my previous 20 years was working at grassroots sport, right? So while I had handled A-list talent, I had run big international tournaments, I never worked in grassroots sport. And that's what being part of the foundation gave me, right? Suddenly you realized, okay, these are the challenges of grassroots sport. We started something called the Children's League, which was a football league in Mizoram, called the Nopang League. Nopang in the local Mizo dialect means kids league, right? Or children's league. And just working in those small projects that I hadn't been working with earlier opened my mind to the power of sport. Right? I think what tends to happen is after you spend so much time in sport, you tend to get slightly maybe cynical about sport and how it's marketed, but when you actually then work with kids and you see what sport means to kids, I think that sort of reignited my passion in sports again. So it was 3 years in Reliance. I just left recently, but it's been a great journey. The other thing about Reliance is scale at what they do. Right, a lot of people talk about scale, but you don't know scale till you work in Reliance, and you don't know the definition of think big till you work in a place like Reliance. It was a brilliant experience.
And I think during your tenure, there were a couple of franchises that Reliance acquired across cricket tournaments. What goes on? What goes on behind the scenes? Like what is the process like?
See, I think similar to the CFG process with Mumbai City, it's exactly the same, right? Again, the folks at Reliance know exactly what they're doing, right? They understand the value of money and they understand strategy perhaps better than anyone else. And like CFG, like I mentioned, CFG will buy a club in Spain or in Uruguay for very different reasons than buying a club in Mumbai, for example, right? I think Reliance follows a similar strategy. One is, they seem to be fairly clear that they want to be in cricket and no other sports for now. Yes, that could change in the blink of an eye, but in my time there it was cricket focused as far as MI was concerned. And if you look at the teams that they've bought into, South Africa, I think it's very obvious that they bought it because of the cricketing talent, right? They bought it for cricketing reasons. Today, you have someone like a Dewald Brevis who's playing in South Africa. You identified him and you got him to the MI main team here, right? So South Africa was for cricketing reasons. You're not going to get great cricketing talent in the ILT20, right? That just finished. But it's got a huge market in terms of the subcontinent diaspora, right? So Indians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis. So there's enough people there who will follow cricket, right? So you did it perhaps for economic reasons. Then you look at the MLC. A lot of people say that India, in terms of cricket, India, Australia, England are almost saturated, right? What is the next big frontier? It's the US, right? Not because the local population pay there, but because the subcontinental diaspora is so big, right? And they have purchasing power, right? Today, average ticket size in the US, people won't think twice before spending $100 to watch a cricket game, right? So you have spending power there, and that's the next big frontier from a market perspective. So I think there are multiple reasons why you should buy a franchise, but Reliance is very similar to CFG, right? They need to see value in it, and they need to have reasons. Unlike in sport, a lot of rich people buy teams or franchises because of vanity, right? Sport opens access that money perhaps can't buy, right? Today, if you are an IPL team owner, suddenly you are sitting along the likes of a Sachin Tendulkar, right, or a Mukesh Ambani, or whatever it is, and that's the access that sports gives you. So a lot of very very rich people around the world, right, not just Indians, buy sports teams because of vanity. Reliance doesn't do that, right? They do it because of strategic reasons and nothing else.
Great. I want to touch upon the difference in Indian sports between cricket and the rest of the sports. What are your views on that?
Well, see, it's a tough one, yeah, but it's something we have to live with. I think if you look at the global biggest economies, there are only two countries that are so focused towards one sport, right? One is Brazil, where football is obviously, religion, and in India, cricket is a religion. The difference is Brazil has always done well in Olympic sports, right? They've always been in the top 10, I think, in almost every Olympics. But in India, this cricket has just overpowered everything, right? And I really think that there are three, four reasons why sport becomes what it is. Again, sorry, I'll just take some time explaining this, but you look at the emergence of cricket in India, right? Yes, it was always big, but it wasn't as big as it was today, right? Hockey was our national sport. But what happened was a confluence of various things, right? So in 83, we won the World Cup, that helped. Then in 87, we held the first international quality tournament in India, which was the Reliance World Cup at that point of time, right? And then in 89, you had the emergence of this little boy called Sachin Tendulkar, who, for the first time, an Indian cricketer went beyond the sports pages, right? Uh, Kids wanted to be like him, girls wanted to marry him, right? Suddenly he became a celebrity. So along with that, you had the emergence of academies, right? Suddenly a lot of people said that okay, cricket is a career option, right? The sports is a career option. So you had the emergence of an icon in Sachin in 1989. You had the opening up of the economy in 1990. So suddenly the Pepsi and Cokes came and started spending on sport. Uh, with the spending, you had infrastructure being developed, you had academies being developed. So you had a pipeline of talent coming through, and you had government support and private support, right? So there was a confluence of things that made cricket what it is today. You look at various other sports that have had the opportunity in the past few years, right? You look at tennis in 2004, 2005, suddenly a lot of things came together, right? You had Sania Mirza. At that point, we had one WTA and one ATP tournament. And these are global tournaments happening in India, right? So Sunfeast Open used to happen in Calcutta, Bangalore Open in Bangalore, and the ATP Kingfisher Airlines Open happened in India. Right, so you had world-class competition happening in India. You had government support, infrastructure was building, and suddenly people were talking about tennis. Right, at that time you had Sania, Mahesh, and Leander doing really, really well. Leander and Mahesh were world number one doubles. Sania had broken into world top 50. I think she had reached as high as 31. So you had a lot of factors coming into play. The problem that happened was you didn't have after Sania Mirza, you didn't have a pipeline of talent, right? Which is why tennis lost momentum. Similarly, if you look at badminton, something similar happened with first Sindhu and then first Saina and then Sindhu, right? And today, I really think that badminton has an opportunity because there's a pipeline of talent again. So there's a lot of things that need to come together to make a sport grow, which hasn't happened with other sports, unfortunately. I'm hoping that'll change. But having said that, I think what has changed in India is over the last 20 years, Olympic sports has become really important, right? Today, Olympic heroes are treated as celebrities in the country. Sindhu is who she is today, not because of the BWF title that she's won, but because of the Olympic two medals that she's won, right? I think gold and silver, right? And people realize that you cannot be an economic superpower but not be a sports superpower, right? They go hand in hand. Every 4 years, when the FIFA World Cup happens, suddenly small countries like Portugal are being talked about, right? Uh, Qatar played in the World Cup, hosted a World Cup. Suddenly, the kind of imaging and profiling that country has, that sports gives, nothing else can give. And I think that's what not just the government of India has realized, but a lot of big private players, right? Whether it's Reliance, whether it's Adani, whether it's JSW, they've realized the soft power of sport, right? And I think that's the big difference. The cricket pie has not changed, right? 80% of spends in Indian sport is still cricket. But the 100% has become a lot larger, right? So the 20% that's spent on Indian sport was a fraction 10 years ago, has become significantly more now. So I don't think the comparison or the fight is other sports versus cricket. Right? As long as that big 100% grows, as long as the pie grows, we will be okay. And you look at our performances over the last 5 years or so, right, across the Asian Games, most successful Asian Games ever, 100 plus medals. You look at our performance in the Tokyo Olympics, most successful ever. And this is only going to get bigger and better, right? So we are not fighting with cricket, but we're trying to just make our country a more sporting country, and we will get there. I think kind of the kind of acceleration that I've seen in other sports in the last 5 years, I hadn't seen the previous 15. So we are in a good place. Long way to go. We cannot get complacent, but yeah, we're getting there.
I think to sum up what you said is we are not we are not trying to reduce the size or the pie of cricket, but we want the entire cake to grow for other sports also to get accommodated. Also, one point is that you talked about the Olympics. I think Neeraj Chopra winning a medal in field sport that has also given a push, and people are focusing on track and field and also more on the Olympic segment. Recently, we had Rohan Bopanna becoming the oldest world number one, and there are brands lining up with him. There are brands lining up with Neeraj, and also Avinash Savli, also who's a track and field runner. So I think there is a shift. There's a shift. I think the exposure is much better to other
No, for
athletes.
sure. I think Neeraj is fascinating, right? Because he has the potential of being the first global sports superstar that we have. Yes, people talk about Virat Kohli, but fact is that, at the end of it, it's cricket. Cricket is played by 10, 15 countries at the highest level, right? But a Neeraj Chopra is world champion in a sport like the javelin, right? Which is pretty much the gold standard when it comes to athletics and throws. And I really think that if managed right, Neeraj Chopra has the potential to become the biggest superstar that India's seen, right? But India needs the emergence of icons across sport, right? Whether it's someone like a Sindhu, whether it's a Neeraj Chopra, whether it's a Sania Mirza earlier, we need to have these guys in global sport being the top one, two, three. When that happens, the face of the sport will change. Javelin is changing as we speak, right? More and more kids are getting into academies. More and more kids are saying that I want to be like Neeraj Chopra. More parents are saying that, you know what, we will support you. So you need the emergence of role models. And there's no better role model in Indian sport today than Neeraj Chopra.
Also, one shift that I want to touch upon is with these with the people in other sports popping up. There's also shift in the parents' mindset who wants to put their kids into sport. They are like कि cricket ही खेलो, cricket में ही career बनेगा. But now they've seen okay, there is scope here and there. I think let's put our kids in these things and let's get them in the
No,
limelight.
100% today, if you look at it, right? Again, I'm intimately aware of what happens with football and cricket, two sports that I work in. Today, an Indian footballer playing in the ISL, an average Indian footballer playing in the ISL, earns much more than a domestic cricketer, right? It's a fact. So I think it's slight misnomer that only cricketers make money. The top 10 cricketers make more money than anyone else. But if you look at, let's say, brand endorsements, you'll have five cricketers, Virat, Dhoni, Hardik, Rohit, and maybe a couple of others. But then they're followed by people like Sindhu, Sunil Chetri, Neeraj Chopra, right? And then you have salaries where a lot of footballers are earning crores. A domestic level cricketer doesn't earn crores, right? So it's a bit of a misnomer in India when they say only cricketers make money. Actual other sports, if you're playing at a professional level, you could make as much money, if not more, than the cricketers, which I think a lot of parents have woken up to. Right? Yeah. Also, I think what's happening is because of the day and age that we live in, parents are pushing the kids outdoors, right? It's better than spending 2 hours on your phone, go play football. I'll enroll you into a coaching camp or whatever it is. And we have a much higher disposable income, right? Which wasn't the case 15, 20 years earlier. So today, if there's a good football or cricket academy, a parent would say that, okay, I don't mind spending a few thousand rupees a month because I know my kid will become active and potentially he could play professionally, right? So that mindset has changed significantly. Yeah. And also, what happens is, sorry, we just speaking about things is that sports gives you discipline, and if the person does not make it to the professional level or the highest level, he will take that qualities and get into professional working, and that will help him grow professionally as well. If not, playing at the top level. There's no greater teacher than sport. It teaches you everything: discipline, teamwork. Don't try and be a hero. Everything. I mean, yeah, you can't have a better teacher than sports. Yes. I think there are potential viewers who are looking to get into the sports industry. I want you to touch upon what are the areas of employment that sports offer and how can one get into it. I think the biggest advantage we have in sports is you don't need to be a specialist to get in, right? You can be a lawyer, you can be a banker, you can be in finance, you can be in marketing, you can be in sales, and or you can be a lawyer, and all of them can become sports professionals, right? The most successful sports agencies in the world were all founded by lawyers, right? Whether it's IMG, Mark McCormack was a lawyer, right? A lot of so you don't need it. We are not. It's not rocket science, right? You don't need a special degree. You don't need an MBA. You need none of that. Once you get into the sports industry, you need to try various things and then you'll develop your niche. Right. So my niche I developed was I did various things, right? Like I said in the beginning, started off with sales and marketing, did operations, understood talent management, and then today I think I found my niche in talent management. Right. Similarly, there'll be others who will start off as lawyers in sports in an agency, and then they'll maybe specialize in law. Right. So the biggest advantage that kids have today is you don't need to specialize, right? What you need to do is you need to have a passion for sports and you need to have the ability to work hard. Like I said, we are not hiring rocket scientists, right? When I'm looking at a potential candidate, what am I looking at? I'm looking at whether he's smart or not, whether he's diligent, and whether he's done his background work, right? If you come to an interview with someone like me, right, I will not ask you about, let's say we are talking about Rohit Sharma, right? I will not ask you about Rohit Sharma's average. I will ask you, okay, what are the kind of endorsements that Rohit Sharma has? right? And all this information is available at the tips of your fingers, right? Unlike 20 years ago, where you didn't have access to this information, today the business of sport is available everywhere, right? So I think it's very important to understand the difference between the technicalities of sport and the non-technicalities of sport, right? Like I said, and I'm not talking about the specifics in terms of becoming a coach or player, right? That's different. But when agencies hire, like we are not, we don't want to know about your knowledge of Indian sport. We want to know if you understand the business of sport. And so that's, I think that comes with research and it comes with discipline, right? So if you're going to an interview, make sure you know enough about the person that's interviewing you. Make sure you know enough about the company, very, very important. And make sure you have your thoughts on what is right and what is wrong. Right. So we're like, again, I keep saying it's not rocket science, but at the same time, unfortunately, the supply is a lot more than demand, right? We have so many people, even today, right? I get on an average on LinkedIn at least two, three messages, right? Either from freshers saying that I want to get into sport, how do I start? Or from seasoned professionals saying that I've been doing law for 20 years or 10 years in finance and I want to get into sport. How do I do that, right? I still don't have an answer to that. A lot of it is right place, right time, right? Like how I got lucky. So I think you just need to be diligent. You need to do your research and you need to keep knocking on doors. The right opportunity hopefully will come.
So we'll take a step back and on a lighter note, I'm sure across your experience, you must have some incidents which are funny enough. You want to touch upon that?
No. No, honestly, I think I can't give away names.
Yeah, yeah, obviously.
But it's a remarkable field, right? Because
Yeah.
you're dealing with human people, you're dealing with humans, you're dealing with personalities, you're dealing with egos, right? And it's not easy. So there are ups and downs, and there are a lot of more. I won't say it's funny, but there are also stressful moments, right? Like a celebrity won't turn up at a shoot, for example. And that's happened multiple times. Then how do you manage the brand? Right? Similarly, you're doing a PR interview and you've told the journalist, okay, stay away from someone's personal life. But it's a live interview and suddenly those questions are asked and the celebrity is looking at you saying that, am I supposed to answer this or not? So a lot of that's happened. Similarly, in the age of social media, right? Again, a lot of these celebrities, very few manage social media on their own, right? A lot of these celebrities are social media agencies. So they'll send a saying that, okay, XYZ has happened. It could be news or it could be some sort of thing. Would you like to tweet or post? And the celebrity said, yeah. But that also because the celebrity is not doing it, there are chances that something gets lost in translation. So I don't know if you've seen it, but sometimes a celebrity's post will have caption. This is basically it's a copy paste, right? And that's happened multiple times. So I think gaps happen all the time. It's just and that's a fascinating bit, right? I think rights and wrongs, ups and downs all the time. But on camera, I can't tell you any
Once it's
hilarious
done, you have to share us
Done.
Also, sir, from this point, I want to understand the incident that you mentioned that that the PR person, the journalist, asked a question which the celebrity wasn't certain enough to give an answer on. How do you tackle such situation? Do you come up to say, "Okay, we are not answering this question," or how
It depends on the celebrity. It depends on the
Ah.
question. I think what's very important is the briefing before, right? You need to always prepare for worst case scenario. So let's say the celebrity X, right, who's having love life complications, which is out there in the open. It's your job as a talent agent to tell the manager that while we've briefed the PR agency not to ask the questions, it's a live event. You could be asked. If you're asked, this is your response, right? So it's very, very important to prepare your talent for worst case scenario. And the safest bit, I mean, there's smart people and there are people who are good with media, right? Like a Shahrukh needs no training. Whatever is thrown at him, he will know the answer better than the best PR strategist ever, right? So you don't need to train him. But for someone who's just finding his feet, maybe English is not his first language, maybe you know, suddenly he's got a lot of fame, money, fortune, and doesn't know how to deal with. So then you need to be careful, right? So the best answer when you ask for something that you don't know or you don't want to think is just say sorry, but no comment, right? But that training of or that preparing an individual before an interview is very, very important. That's 90% of your work done. Beyond that, there are variables that sometimes you can't control.
And we are reaching to the end of the podcast. One advice that you have received which has helped you professionally?
So many. I think I've been fortunate enough to work with some incredible people, some of the Western world sport. Right, like I said, it doesn't just have to be a boss. I've worked with like stuff that I worked to learn from someone like a Diego Forlan. Right, he was a big name when he came to the ISL. I mean, he was at the end of his career, but he was professional, right? He knew that, okay, for him, it doesn't make a difference, but for the supporters of the club, for the technical staff, for everyone else, it was very, very important that he behaved professionally, right? Unlike another legend that we got in the ISL, I won't mention whom, but I was very, very excited about working with him. Came to India, immediately you could tell something was off. He didn't care about the club. He just cared about making the money and going off. Right. So I think professionalism is really important, and that's what I've learned from some of the biggest names in the sport. To to give you one piece of advice, it really will be that, just be persistent and keep knocking. Like I said, in what we do, unfortunately, supply is much more than demand. So you need to be at the right place and right time. So just keep being persistent, right? So if you've identified a company or person you want to work with, I'm not saying be a stalker, but make sure you find ways of keeping in touch, right? So, for example, if there's someone you want to work with and you know that he's a football fan, once a month, maybe send him an update, right? Saying that I don't know if you read this news, but very interesting deal happened between X, Y, and Z or something like that. But find ways to keep in touch with the people that you want or companies that you want to work with. Be persistent and be diligent, and always be prepared. Like I said, like doing an interview with the client with the talent, prepare the talent, right? Similarly, you need to be prepared, right? You need to do your research and you need to do your background checks. I remember, again, just going back a bit, I remember my first commercial deal was with Whirlpool and Ajay Devgan and Kajol. It was back in 2005 when Whirlpool for the first time signed a couple, right? And it was a big deal because the first time I think an Indian couple was doing a multi-crore deal. But before the meeting with Whirlpool, I had to make sure that I understood Whirlpool's business, right? When do ACs sell? What are Whirlpool's competitors doing? How does a Blue Star differ from a Whirlpool, right? ACs is not my area of interest, but when I'm meeting the marketing head of Whirlpool, I need to know what his business is. And I think that's a lesson that a lot of us today forget because again everything's available at the tip of fingers, right? We don't do research. So anytime you're meeting anyone, anytime you're reaching out to anyone, make sure you do your research. I think that's very, very important.
And one advice you want to give to someone who is just coming on into the industry?
Cliche, but be grateful if you're who's coming on to the
Yeah,
industry,
yeah.
who's
Starting off in the
yeah.
space.
If you've got the opportunity of working in sport, please be grateful. Don't take it for granted. I think it's something that I still do every day. Is and you'll have bad days, right? It's a job at the end of it. Everyone has bad days. Like I said, when Mumbai City lost or when my client missed out on an endorsement deal, it feels horrible, right? But remember the next morning when you wake up that you're privileged to be here, right? A lot of people, thousands of people, and I'm not exaggerating, thousands of people will kill to be in your place, right? Remember that. Have perspective, have gratitude once you're in the industry because, yeah, you got in by some talent, but a lot of luck and hold on to it. Great.
So we'll start off with the rapid fire. One word to describe your journey in the sports industry.
Interesting.
Okay. What is your favorite sports documentary?
Lots, but I would say Last Dance, which is fairly cliche, but I think Last Dance, just in terms of how it reached out to an audience beyond basketball, production value, the storytelling, I think it changed the way a lot of people look at sport right today. And thanks to Last Dance, there's so many of these similar kinds of documentaries. So just in terms of impact in sport, it would be Last Dance.
Your go-to sports app or website for latest update?
The Athletic.
Okay. One book that has had a significant impact on your professional life?
What They Don't Teach You in Harvard, which is by the founding uh, father of sport management, I would say, Mark McCormack. I think it's a series of 3 books. What they teach, what they don't teach you, what they still don't teach you, and one more. It should be mandatory reading for anyone wanting to get to sports.
If you could switch careers for a day, what would you choose and why?
I wouldn't choose anything for
Okay.
the world.
Okay. What's your proudest professional achievement so far?
Not too many, but also when I started off, got the opportunity of helming a big ATP tournament, which was the Kingfisher Airlines Open between 2007 and 2009. I think we did it for 3 years, and for young mid 20-year-old to run a tournament like that. It was an experience of a lifetime. I also learned a lot, and there were crazy challenges. But I would count that as a significant achievement.
Okay. One word to describe the future of Indian sports?
I won't say one word, but only ways up. Yeah.
If you could have dinner with any sports figure in the industry, living or dead, who would it be and why?
Arvind Senna.
What's the most memorable sporting event that you have attended in person?
I would have to say the finals of the Hyderabad Open in 2005.
Okay.
That's when Sania Mirza won. And I was relatively new in sports, hadn't attended too many live events, had attended cricket games obviously. But the hysteria that I saw around her, people were breaking barricades, people were going mad, right? There was security deployed all over, gates were broken, people were having fights, but that commotion and that hysteria around a female sports person, forget that, just around a non-cricket event, it's not something I've ever seen even after that, right? So that would be, yeah.
Above watching the All-Star game?
Also, I mean, it wasn't emotional, right?
Okay.
It was a fascinating experience if you go for any of the All-Stars. Just the Americans know how to market anything, right? And they are the pinnacle of sports marketing, both the NFL and the NBA. So just how they operate, right? There's not a second between an NBA game that the audience is left wondering, okay, what do I do? There's always something or the other, right? So that for me was fascinating, but it wasn't emotional.
Okay.
WTA, Hyderabad Open, watching a client doing something that no Indian sports person had ever done, watching a cricket crazy audience suddenly trying to stay quiet between points, which is they are not used to, right?
Yes.
In tennis.
Yeah.
That for me was incredible.
Okay. If you weren't involved in the sports industry, what alternative career path would have you chosen?
I don't know, honestly. Never thought of that. Like I said, when I was in school, I wanted to play sports. Moment I was in college, I saw Jeremy go and said I want to work in sport. So I don't know any better. I don't know if I could ever do anything else.
You shared your resume with the Tiger Sports. So what if the call did not come up? What would you have been done? What would you do after that? If the call did not come?
I would have probably got into, so I've always had the fascination with literature. I graduated in English literature. So would have been something in PR, media, writing. For sure, yeah, would have been in that space.
Great. I think we'll conclude on that note, sir. It was an amazing experience. While shooting, I was into your answers. I skipped my questions, couple of them. But I think it was all worthwhile. We spoke about Quan, we spoke about Mumbai City FC, we spoke about your experience at Reliance Sports. I'm sure our viewers will definitely take the positives, and that would help them in their professional life. I would like to thank you for taking time out and coming on our episode. This is it from our side. Keep watching Beyond the Field. Hit the like button and the subscribe button. Until then, thank you.